This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 348 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. It's the beginning of a super special series, so welcome to episode 1 of the Van Life Diaries, Europe 1985. Let me first pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, where I'm recording this podcast today. So this is a super special monthly series. Over the next 6 months, we are travelling not just around the world, but also back in time. I'm revisiting the most important trip of my life, the one that set me up to always be curious about the world, because it happened 40 years ago this year. So, way back in the 80s. During the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series, I'm going to be reliving a 6-month budget motorhome or campervan trip my family took around Western Europe when I was just 9 years old. I've interviewed my dad to help me with this, and I'm lucky to also have access to my late mum's travel diaries from the time, along with our family photo albums and my own childhood memories. Along with reliving these memories of a life-changing trip, I want to talk about how travel memories impact us, what's changed and what hasn't changed in the world of travel over these 4 decades, and also why taking your kids travelling is always a good idea. Before we hit the road, I want to say a huge thanks to the sponsor of this series, Context Travel. They've been operating walking tours in cities around the world since 2003, have been a certified B Corp since 2011, and they find incredibly interesting and qualified subject matter experts to take you on a very special tour. More from Context Travel during the episode. Part 1 of Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 actually starts in Hong Kong en route from Australia to Europe. It sees us buy a motorhome in London and ends with our first experiences driving on the opposite side of the road in France. Our flight from Perth to Hong Kong was the very first time I had been on a plane in my life. I was 8 years old and just a couple of days short of 9 years old. I would turn 9 during our time in Hong Kong. My mum's diary reports a little bit on this flight. Prior to departure, we ran into Phyllis and Tony Moore from Esperance. Hadn't seen them for some 16 or 17 years. Flight off on time and girls excited. Tony Moore gave us a note which was meant for him to see the flight deck. Girls thought that was super. I don't really remember getting into the cockpit, but there's a photo of it and I know it happened. And it's certainly something that doesn't happen very often these days, so it was definitely fun. And how Perth, that on a flight from Perth to Hong Kong, we bump into people that my parents knew, that they knew long before I was born. I asked my dad about what he remembered from our time in Hong Kong. Would you remember anything about Hong Kong from that time?
Yes, we had rock melon from Australia, served at a restaurant we ate at. That was a thing I remember. No, it doesn't make any sense. But,
that's so funny.
Well, to see an Australian product overseas, I thought was great.
That is crazy. How did you find out it was Australian?
It just still had the little sticker on the bottom.
The photos show that we went on the Peak Tram in Hong Kong and visited Ocean Park Amusement Park for my 9th birthday. My mum's diary reports a little bit on what we could see about us. Hong Kong. Looks interesting. Flats where people live with their washing all out the window. We are lucky in Perth. Staying at Holiday Inn. Adequate. I do remember that seeing lots of apartments was so different to my life in completely suburban Perth. And in fact, my diary from the time even has a drawing of the washing hanging outside the apartment windows we could see from our hotel. It definitely made an impression on me, and it was the beginning of realising that travel makes us see how lots of people live in lots of different ways. After a few days in Hong Kong, we flew on to England. We did a little sightseeing in London while we were staying in a hotel that became infamous in our family law, but it was mostly preparation work for the many months ahead. We were shopping for winter clothes and, most importantly, shopping for a motorhome or campervan, which would be our home for the next few months. But back to that hotel, I asked my dad what he remembered about our short stay in the Alpha Hotel in our first days in London.
My most vivid memory is that the little place we were staying at, for breakfast, it was baked beans. And I hadn't realised that the British were so keen on baked beans. We had it every day for breakfast.
Did you get sick of it?
Oh, in the morning, I didn't like it at all. There you go.
It's not what we would eat here.
No.
Actually, it's funny because in Mum's diary, she mentions on our final morning at that hotel, before we moved into the campervan, that you were the only one who ate breakfast. So I guess the rest of us had got thoroughly sick of it. So that all makes sense.
It was pretty ordinary.
Yeah, I remember that hotel. I remember we weren't allowed to walk on the floor.
Oh, no, because the carpet might have been a bit dirty. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. My mum's report on that hotel goes like this. Alpha Hotel, Victoria. Owner claim, very close to everything. P.S. All wear our Cathay socks when we were out of bed. So grotty. I do remember that, and we kept those socks for many years. I remember we had flown Cathay Pacific, and they had given us these fairly grotty-looking green socks, I have to say, already. They didn't look great. And we wore those socks in that hotel, and I think out of nostalgic value, we all kept those socks for as long as we could until they fell apart. Now, our next job, of course, was to get our home and wheels for the next 6 months. And I asked my dad about what he remembered from the process of buying our motorhome, which is not easy, especially back in 1985, where you couldn't look up a website or get any useful information like that easily. I'm curious what you recall about buying the campervan.
From Turner's. Yeah. No, not a lot.
I looked them up. It still exists.
Turner.
It's still called something. It's still Turner's something to do with vehicles. I've forgotten, but I looked them up on Google Maps.
Yeah, for a motor dealer, I thought he was pretty good, pretty fair.
Yeah.
And of course, when we came back from Europe, we rented that flat from him that he offered.
I remember that. Yeah. Yes, he was a good bloke.
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny what you remember, because I really distinctly remember waiting around in these Turner's offices. They must have needed to finish something. I know they needed to do a couple of fixing up things on the van before we could drive away the next day, I think it was. But I really distinctly remember waiting in a pretty boring office. I remember kind of dancing up and down with my sister and just hoping for that waiting time to be over. But isn't that weird that 40 years on, that's the bit I recall. I do remember the guys who worked there as well. Obviously, we spent a long time there, and they were probably not used to having two young girls from Australia standing around waiting as well. But we had our motorhome campervan, and we loved it. It was our home, and we were ready to get going. We did spend a little bit of time in London before we hit the road. I remember we got to see the changing of the guards, and I know this mostly from photos and my mum's diary. And she said that we also visited Westminster Abbey, which I had forgotten until I checked her diary. I revisited as an adult and felt like it was new to me, but you just never know, do you? And then lastly, from my mum's diary of our London adventures, she writes, "Walked miles PM, hoping to see Madame Tussauds, but so many people, queue very long. People from bus tours from Germany, etc. We will see it later. Back to the tube, then home." So it seems that over-tourism and long queues in tourism hoping to see famous sites was rife already back in 1985. Sometimes I feel like over-tourism is kind of a new invention, but apparently no. Thanks again to Context Travel for sponsoring this episode. And I thought I'd pick out some highlights of their walking tours that match the places we're talking about today. For one, of course, the iconic City of London, where one of the tours Context Travel offers is a hidden history tour, led by historians or archaeologists, which includes hidden remains I have definitely never seen. Or moving on to France, which we'll reach in the second half of this episode, I love the sound of the baguette to bistro signature Paris food tour. I remember buying baguettes in numerous French bakeries to eat inside our motorhome with dinner, but now that I'm older, I would like to learn a whole lot more about Parisian food. These tours are guided by chefs, sommeliers and food writers, so they know their way around Paris for the taste buds. And so, it was time to head off to France. We actually took a hovercraft from Dover to Calais, which at the time I thought it was normal because that was the only way I'd ever travelled with a vehicle across any body of water. But in hindsight, it was fairly unusual to take a hovercraft, and it was a service that I did check finished in the early 2000s. You can't take a hovercraft anymore. So it was a kind of a different way to travel, but I'm glad I got to do it. I might not have the chance again. My mum's diary reported that it was a 32-minute trip, always so precise, and not rough. But what was rough, apparently, was driving off the hovercraft and onto French roads onto the other side, which she reported as traumatic. On road about 9 a.m. to Paris. Could not find way in and ended up about in the centre. BK through a few red lights and wrong side a few times, but we made it. Traumatic. Finally found Ring Road and fell over sign to caravan park. Very pleased to see it. My dad, who is the BK referred to in my mum's diary, didn't remember it as being quite so bad.
The weather was lousy. I remember that. But apart from that, we probably had some difficulty finding the caravan park.
Yes, I think we did. Well, first of all, it was the first time to drive on the wrong side of the road.
Wrong side of the road, yeah.
Yeah, which is...
No, I don't remember anything specific about it. And nothing terrible happened.
It was just bad weather.
Very ordinary.
Tricky driving, wrong side of the road, difficult roundabouts, etc. aside. I mean, to be fair, of course, there were no Google Maps in these days, and my mum was navigating from a physical atlas, which we still have in our family to this day. So, it was tricky for everybody concerned. We eventually got there and spent some time in Paris. We didn't go up the Eiffel Tower. We have pictures of being nearby, but apparently nobody felt the need to go up there. But curiously, what my dad remembers is something that was another early sign of over-tourism.
I do recall we went to the Louvre and the queue there had signs like 2 hours and further back 3 hours to indicate how long you would have to wait before you get in.
Wow.
That was, we just couldn't afford that sort of time.
No. That's crazy.
There may have been a skip the queue tour or something. We didn't take it.
That's interesting, though. They had signs up like that. Kind of like at Disneyland.
Waiting time.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I haven't been to Disneyland.
Yeah, they have kind of that how long it will take from certain points.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy to think that Paris was so full, and that's 40 years ago.
Tourists, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole place is full of tourists.
Yeah, well, now it's massively over-touristed, but obviously it was then too. After Paris, we headed out into non-Parisian areas of France and down the coast, in fact. What I really loved about many aspects of this trip was that somehow my parents knew it wasn't just the touristy, famous sites that were going to be important. And they did all kinds of, I think at the time, slightly crazy and different things. And this is one of them.
Now I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
Do you remember Biarritz?
I do, because I remember going to the school there.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Can you tell me what you remember about that? And then I'll tell you what I remember.
Well, it was a thought to do that given to me by one of the people that we associated with touring to London.
Uh-huh.
And we gave it a try, and I'm not sure that it had any long-term effect. Tell me about it.
I remember it to this day. So I guess it did have a long-term effect. Didn't teach me any French, but I don't remember. I kind of remember standing around waiting, but then I remember being in the class, and I remember that a kid gave me an eraser as a gift. So that was memorable. And I would be interested to know, it's a little, it was a little French school. Maybe some of those kids even remember. You never know what impact things like that can have.
That's true. It's a small world too.
Yeah.
So that was Biarritz.
Cool.
It was interesting that there was that dining room. Did you have lunch there?
I don't remember.
Mm.
Yeah, so they must have had like proper meals in school the way we don't.
40 years ago.
My mum's diary has also come through with some more of the facts about my sister and I visiting this school in Biarritz. Visited school to see if girls could have half a day. Primary school in Biarritz. Children do not learn English. Staff most helpful, though not much good on the English. Neither us at French. At one time we had 5 staff all talking together. Riot. Very helpful, and finally we were taken to the college, 12 years and up. And girls had an hour English lesson with the class. Teacher lovely and talked and asked questions mostly. Surprised that girls could have 6 months off school. Certainly France would not allow more than 1 month. Girls enjoyed. Yes, the girls did enjoy that visit to the school. I honestly remember receiving that eraser gift and always will. What I've noticed most so far from going through my mum's diary, looking at our photos and chatting with my dad was that there was a lot that was new to all of us in these first weeks of this big trip. My dad had spent time working for the bank in Papua New Guinea, but other than that, none of us had experience of other countries. But while we were kind of learning about all the differences in these places, new languages, new foods, lots of new things, we were also already starting to see that there were a lot of similarities too. And I think especially when you're staying in a caravan park, you get to kind of experience a lot of those similarities as you meet and greet other people. I think above all, as young children, I was 9 and my sister was 7, it didn't matter too much where we were. I think as long as we had our parents around, wherever we were felt like home, and that motorhome certainly became a cosy home during those 6 months. Next month, in the second episode of the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series, we will be travelling to Spain, Italy and Greece, and I can't wait to share it all with you. Big thanks to Context Travel, the series sponsor, for their support in creating these special podcast episodes. You can find out more about their tours at contexttravel.com or find them under Context Travel on your social media platform of choice. If you want to try a Context tour yourself, you can get a 15% discount by using the code ThoughtfulTravel when you book online. Thank you so much for listening to episode 348 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. A massive thanks to my dad for agreeing to sit down with me to chat about our long ago trip. I will share some of the photos, which are all taken by him, from our trip in the show notes. For this episode, those show notes will be at notaballerina.com/348, where you'll also find all of these links. For example, our Facebook group and LinkedIn group for Thoughtful Travellers, or just search for Thoughtful Travellers in those platforms. And don't forget the Thoughtful Travellers newsletter on Substack, which you can find at thoughtfultravel.substack.com. Can't wait to share the rest of this series with you. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.